Welcome to Sex Ed with DB. I'm your host, DB. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the podcast. If you love and support the work that we do, head to www.sexedwithdb.com and buy some of our hot new merch. Follow us on Instagram at sexedwithdbpodcast. And if you want to advertise with us, shoot us an email at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. Today, I learned about fashion from Sky Cubacub. Sky is a non-binary, queer, and disabled Filipinx human from Chicago, Illinois. Rebirth Garments is their line of wearables for the full spectrum of gender, size, and ability. They maintain the notion of radical visibility, a movement based on claiming our bodies, and through the use of bright colors, exuberant fabrics, and innovative designs, they refuse to assimilate and are spearheading a queer and disabled dress reform movement. Learn more at rebirthgarments.com. Clap it up for Sky. Fun fact number 1. Did you know that Uberlube works underwater, making it great for fun in pools, lakes, and tubs? Fun fact number 2. Uberlube is latex compatible, so it's safe and effective to use with condoms. And fun fact number 3. A small amount of Uberlube can be applied anywhere to prevent daily chafing, not just when exercising. These fun facts are brought to you by Uberlube. Use promo code SEXEDDB for 10% off your purchase with free shipping at www.uberlube.com. Ever wish you had an exact replica of your gorgeous parts? Well, now you can make one yourself thanks to Clone-A-Willy. Clone-A-Willy and Clone-A-Pussy are DIY molding kits that allow anyone to make an exact replica of any penis or vulva at home into a high-quality sex toy or memento. Use promo code SEXED20 for 20% off your purchase at www.cloneawilly.com. Follow them on Instagram at CloneAWillyKit. Sky, hello. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Great. Happy Sunday. Really glad that you're here. I have been really admiring your work from afar when I learned about you through my co-producer over the last couple weeks, and I'm so interested to dig deeper into your story and just learn all about you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you for asking me.
Of course. All right, so let's start with your name, your pronouns, and how you identify.
I'm Sky Cubacub. I use they, them pronouns. I'm non-binary, agender, queer. I am disabled and mad. I have lots of mental illness. And I'm Filipinx. I run a clothing line called Rebirth Garments.
Amazing. And what's your background and how did you become involved in disability advocacy and design? You said that you are disabled. You just said you have mental illness, so I'm sure that is a part of it. But I would love to know a little bit more detail about, how your story basically.
So when I was growing up, I've always had mental illness. I've always been very anxious and had panic disorder and depression, but mainly the panic disorder is what and anxiety has really informed my work. So being an artist and finding different ways to kind of manage, I learned how to make chainmail jewelry at a young age, and that was very calming to my brain and was very stimmy. And now we have the language of like stimming and fidgeting and things like that as good for folks who are neurodivergent. But at the time I didn't really have that type of language. I just was like, oh, this feels really good for my brain and my hands to be constantly doing something and helps me think better. So that's what really got me into kind of making adornment. And then in high school, I was making all sorts of really goofy chainmail clothing. But my teachers were like, okay, you can you can model these however you want in college, but we were getting in trouble, so you have to like wear something underneath.
Okay, so
So
they were like a little too revealing. Is it
I
was
mean,
their feedback?
but nah, but not actually. They don't care at all.
Okay,
It's just because, I mean, they're really good at defending their students' work, but they kept on getting in trouble for like a lot of really silly things from parents. So they were like,
got it.
okay,
So it
and
was the
like,
system that was kind of influencing them.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't really influencing them. It was just like they were. I mean, I was really good friends with all of the teachers, so I could see them getting in trouble
Yeah,
for like
but they were on
really.
your side. They were on your side.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Got it. Awesome.
So, but then that's how I got into making spandex clothing because I was making stuff to go underneath, and I was dissatisfied with like the boring colors that were available because they were just like black, white, or like a weird, creepy beige, um, or like a baby pink. So I wanted to make like neon stuff, and I got really into making lots of neon unitards, and that's what really got me into making like spandex clothing for my clothing line.
Very, very cool. And just to back up a little bit, I would love to know, what was your sex education like growing up, if you had any at all?
I actually had a good amount of sex education, although I still think it's not, adequate. But yeah, I went to Chicago public schools. I went to two really, really good Chicago public schools. So I went to Alexander Graham Bell Elementary and then Northside College Prep. And um, I mean, yeah, so we had family life or whatever starting in fourth or fifth grade. I can't remember. Um, and we would, yeah, so it talked a lot about things, but it also very graphically, they like to talk about STIs. I remember like a 3-hour presentation in the auditorium at Bell when I was like in seventh grade or something. That was like the fourth through eighth graders. We all just watched a super long presentation just showing like I
Was it like
like
our bodies, ourselves, or like something like that?
no, it was like this is what happens if you get syphilis. This is what
Oh
happens
boy.
if you
Yep.
get
Okay.
chlamydia. This is what
It's like, here
happens.
are the scariest moments of sex.
Yeah, they just showed us like tons of pictures, like very graphic images and
Right.
like
So
um
nothing very helpful in that presentation, maybe.
it was mostly just like overwhelming. But I would say compared to any other sex education that I've heard of, sex education that I received was a lot better because, it talked about sex and, and like it also talked about queer folks, but like not really helpfully, but like just being like, at least admitting to our existence. 'Cause
So it wasn't, you're saying it wasn't abstinence. Like there was
yeah, it wasn't
something,
abstinence at
it was
all.
like, they were
It was like
talking about it, even if
people
it,
have sex.
yeah, even if it wasn't as much of a positive spin on it as you would have hoped, it existed, you're saying.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it was more positive than anybody else's that I've heard of, but like, I can critique it and it can always be better.
Totally. Yes, yes, yes. There's much room for improvement and even comprehensive sex education because we're still learning and adapting and, we're ever changing. So, yeah, totally
And I
makes
would say
sense.
like my high school sex education, the section about queerness, it was more so like the gym teacher. Well, it's kind of silly that it's just like taught by the gym teachers.
Yep.
Um, but they were like, yeah, this woman was just like, yes, I have a friend whose son is gay and he has HIV or something. So it was basically just about, I mean, yeah, I think a lot of everything was just about like things that could be negative or, well, yeah, even
Yeah.
though, these days, like, having a HIV is totally fine and
And
like,
manageable, yeah.
and you can live, it's fine. But like, everyone always loves to freak you out.
Yes, exactly. Okay, makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's get into your custom clothing brand, Rebirth Garments. So I want to know, what is it? You talked a little bit about the background, but I want to know, like, how did you start it? And also, like, how did you really become, what was your like aha moment, if you have one, about how you knew you were really passionate about designing and selling these wearables and accessories specifically for disabled, queer, trans folks of all sizes and ages?
Yeah, I mean, I started it in 2014. I was in a lingerie class at my college, although I'd been dreaming about this clothing line since I was in high school. I just didn't have like the time. As soon as I graduated high school, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to be able to put out a collection every year while I'm in college, because I put out a collection in high school. And so I just thought that college was going to like let me do that. But I was like, just kidding. College just sucks your soul out, like, and it's terrible. So, but finally, after I got really sick and my stomach stopped working properly and I had to take off a semester from school, and then when I came back from school I still wasn't really ready. I should have taken off more time, but I'm glad now that I'm just out of there. But I was really sick when I was going back to school and trying to figure out how to manage my life now with like a more physical chronic illness / disability rather than just a mental illness. And yeah, I was like not being able to wear most of my clothing hurt too much. I mean, I've always been very sensitive. I've always had a lot of problems with seams. So like when I was a kid, I wore all my socks and underwear inside out because
Was it like itchy or kind of like bothersome to you?
It would give me bruises. My skin is really sensitive. So like, yeah, sometimes I would come home and I would just have to like take off my underwear and I would see like a giant bruise. I mean, I still get bruises from seams sometimes.
Wow.
It kind of goes in and out, but at least I can wear socks normal now. Although, I mean, it was fine. I think technology has just gotten better. So now like seams are a lot softer too. So that's really nice. But yeah, like, I mean, I like to just mainly wear the underwear that I make. Sorry, I'm not a morning person.
That's okay.
But yeah, so I stopped being able to wear, I used to only wear like these tight trip jeans, like lots of skinny jeans that were patterned. And I stopped being able to wear those because I can't wear anything that I call hard pants, which are just like jeans or anything that's non-stretch. So yeah, I decided to take this lingerie class and I was like, I'm just going to start the clothing line like at this point. And I guess originally I thought that they were going to be two separate clothing lines. Like it would be gender affirming undergarments for trans folks, with like more of a lingerie twist. And then I thought, yeah, then I would have like clothing for folks with disabilities. But immediately, like when I started, I was like, no, this should just be the same clothing line because like, there's going to be a lot of overlap. And like if I am a person with disabilities who's also identifying as non-binary, then I'm sure there's going to be a lot of others. And, now I've seen through the magic of the internet, like a gazillion people and even like, yeah, like at the time, most of the trans undergarment lines that I knew of were all like very like binarily based, or they'd be like, this is for F to M or M to F.
Right.
And things like that. And that really made me uncomfortable because I was like, no, like I feel like there's people who are non-binary like me and, folks who aren't even non-binary but who just like want a different styling and don't want just a very binary view of gender.
Yeah. So it sounds like you really found a community in folks who you weren't sure that community was out there, it sounded like, or that there were as many people as you expected. Is that right?
I think so, because when I was in school, like everyone was like, what are you even talking about? Like none of this makes sense. And like I had to write this whole manifesto because people like didn't understand what I was doing because they thought they didn't think that disabled folks could have sex, so they were like, surely they can't have sexuality. So I wrote this manifesto, Radical Visibility, all about like a queer and disabled dress reform movement, and I think that that helped a lot because a lot of people thought that I was conflating queerness with disability, which I never. I was always like, no, I'm making clothing for queers with disabilities, but because these people didn't have any sort of imagination to what, a disabled person's sex life or just sexuality or anything could be, they just were like, oh no, definitely you're just saying that queerness is a disability. And I was like, nope.
You're misunderstanding.
Yeah. And I'm, definitely like including like ace and ace spectrum folks in this, like, so I'm just saying that, disability or like is very desexualized, but like, and not asexualized. A lot of folks like to say that it's asexualized, but I'm like, there's tons of ace folks that I know. So,
Totally.
and I'm kind of on ace spectrum lately. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And yeah, let's dig into the radical visibility movement a bit. I want to know kind of like tell me more about this manifesto that you're talking about, and also like what's the real goal of this movement and this concept for you?
So it's all about taking up space, taking up visual space, making sure that we are not ignored, and being radically visible. Like it can be physically radically visible. So like, and I mean that's what the dress reform movement is based off of. It's like wearing lots of bright colors and power clashing patterns and like clothing that shows off your disability rather than hiding it, or shows up off your body in whatever way feels comfortable. And it's all about having the option, because like I think a lot of people misunderstand and think that I want everybody to be radically visible, but I'm like, not everybody can be radically visible because you can't see the difference between being radically visible and not. So it's about giving folks options, because straight, white, skinny, thin, cis folks have all the options of the world, like getting to wear any kind of clothing they ever want. So being able to give the option of having something more joyous and like cute party clothes, and not just like clothing that makes you look sicker, clothing that looks like scrubs, or like at least now there are some clothing lines that are a little bit more adaptive, but yeah, they cater more towards like business casual or things like that, and that's fine and it's needed, but I wanted to have something that's very celebratory and giving people the option of whatever colors they want.
Yes, and you really can see this if you're a listener right now listening, and check out Sky's website, which is, go ahead, Sky, what's the URL?
It's just rebirthgarments.com.
Rebirthgarments.com, that's right. You could really see everything that you're talking about, but since we're in a podcast form, can you maybe describe like some of the pieces that you've created and kind of like the brightness of it, and the fact that like this is like functional clothing that's meant to make a statement and be fun? Can you talk a little bit more about like specific pieces that you design?
Yeah, so one of my favorite things to wear when I'm like trying to be like a fancy business queer is like well, basically everything I make is spandex, just because first of all, I only like sewing stretch materials. I hate woven materials. And I think a lot of times people think that when I say I make clothing for everyone of all these, identities, I think they also think that I mean that I make every kind of clothing, which
Right.
is not possible. Like no clothing line makes every kind of clothing. So my clothing is much more on the like party, dance, wrestling, like active wear, sporty, like kind of and like swimwear and underwear. So that's my focus. I love making swimwear. So it's like, yeah, lots of spandex patterns, lots of black and white patterns. I love black and white patterns and neon colors. I use a lot of sheer mesh and like kind of this like spandex athletic mesh material and holographic materials. And then more lately, I've been getting my own custom prints printed by Spoonflower, which is like a really amazing company, and they do like print on demand, like fabric yardage that's like super eco-friendly and awesome. And so I've been getting a bunch of prints of my my father, who's passed away, paintings that he created in the 70s that my friend Lindsay Whittle turned into really cool repeat prints. So yeah,
wow.
When I'm being a fancy business queer, I like wearing a suit that I made out of my dad's prints. I'll wear like a very power clashing dazzle camo snap down shirt. So instead of buttons, because buttons are not, very accessible, I use snaps and a lot of things. It's got lace arms and little, elbow pads, cute, like sexy librarian style.
Love it.
And then like, yeah, spandex blazer and pants, because like a lot of, more businessy looking clothing is not very comfortable.
Yeah, can I delve deeper into what you just said about buttons? Because I don't think that
Yeah.
many people realize like how for certain people with disabilities it is really challenging with like everyday clothes. Can you talk a little bit more about like other things maybe that folks who are able-bodied and able-minded might not think about when putting on their clothing and what maybe is more challenging for people with disabilities?
Yeah, mainly it's things with like zippers, buttons, just the way that you like get in and out of clothing a lot of times is very inaccessible. So, I mean, with spandex, I just try to mostly eliminate these kinds of closures and just have clothing that you can slip on very easily. But then there's like other things where it's necessary to have closures, but it might be kind of difficult. So I usually use snaps, like for this awesome collaboration that I did uh, with Let Collective. We made this IV shirt, and the founder of Let, Haley Small, is fed a lot of times through an IV, and growing up having this IV, hooked up to her like many days in a row, and so she couldn't change her shirt at all. And if she did want to change her shirt, she needed to like get unhooked from the IV, but then it would immediately make her very dizzy. So we made a shirt that like completely snaps off, so you don't have to unhook from an IV. Yeah, actually, a lot of clothing made for like strippers is like very accessible, I feel
Oh, I
like.
love it. So they can just kind of like rip it off and be able to do
Yeah.
their dance. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I never really thought about the parallel there, but that
Oh,
is
I
really
love
cool.
it.
That's awesome. And also, yeah, things in commercials and TV and movies where they or on Broadway where they need to kind of like do a quick change. I'm sure there are kind of similarities in like the ability to get out of clothing without like the typical kind of thing we would think of like taking off
Yeah,
a shirt or, getting your arms through the sleeves or whatever. But
totally.
that's interesting. Yeah. Have you ever seen like a TV show or movie scene or something on like in theater where you think where you kind of got an idea or inspiration for your clothing, or where does your inspiration mainly come from?
I mean, definitely, I get inspired by anything. Like, I and like, I get a lot of dreams about like solving problems. So
Mm.
um, I mean, it's awesome, but also terrible having such vivid dreams. It's like, it's awesome when I can problem solve, or like, sometimes I'll be like, man, I don't know how to, like, what order I need to sew this in or something. So I'll just like lay down and I'll dream about it, and I can, solve problems that way. But I also have like horrifying night terrors
Oh
that
gosh.
are like, and like PTSD. So
Wow.
it's like
Okay. So it's
also
not all sunshine and rainbows in your dreams, it sounds like.
no, it's like 99% horrifying and
Oh,
then 1% like coming up with like really awesome things. So
oh God. Well, at least I guess you have the 1% to lead, to lead you on your on your journey, but that is really shitty. That's tough.
yeah.
But wow, the way that you're thinking and the way that you solve problems is really, really awesome to me because it is very different from the way in which I think about things. I also am not I'm not good with my hands. Like I'm not
Mm,
someone who finds that I'm able to like picture something and then like make that thing. That's never been something that I've been good at.
hmm
And so it's really awesome to me and fascinating to speak with people who that's like their gift and their skill. So
Yeah.
I find I really admire you for that ability and that skill and that passion also that comes with it.
Yeah, I don't even like sketch or anything. I just imagine it and then I go straight to pattern making
Wow.
um and like some I'll write notes sometimes of like what I want to make or like the order that it needs to be sewn because some things it's like it really is like what is the order it needs to be sewn in to figure out how to get it together. The main way I get inspiration is through these interviews that I do with my models and clients. So I ask them a series of questions, and it's like, what would make clothing more accessible to your body? What would make clothing more affirming to your gender? What parts of your body do you want to highlight? What parts do you feel vulnerable about but want to highlight in this context? And yeah, what parts do you feel vulnerable about? And then what parts do you feel vulnerable about and want to highlight in this context? So the that's like what I ask all of my models, and then sometimes they'll come up with really fun phrases like they'll be like, "Oh, I want to look like Baby Spice Unicorn or like a space mistress or
Oh my God,
like
spectacular.
something like that," and then it'll help me really visualize something exciting. Um,
That's really cool. So it's really like relationship building that you're doing as well. Like really
yeah,
like delving deep into what people want to look like and want to feel like in their bodies with their clothing or their accessories and then you make
yeah,
that one-on-one specific connection. So it's really like intimate and detailed, I would imagine.
yeah, yeah.
That's really cool. That's awesome. I want to know how many years have you been doing this and how do you imagine that this part of your career is kind of going to launch you into your next part of your career? And on that note, like what do you want that next part to be looking like? Do you have plans to kind of expand or, branch out into new spaces or what does that really look like for you?
I would say, I mean, I've been doing this clothing line started in like the summer 2014 and then I put it on Etsy in November of 2014. I've been making clothing and stuff like that since I was 13 years old. I got really into it in high school and I mean, I guess last year my clothing line did pivot to include lots of different kinds of accessible face masks, especially the masks with the clear windows, and but also combining it with accessible attachment styles like snaps and Velcro and magnets and things like that. So I guess I will continue definitely to make masks because that's what's going on. I'm in the process right now of switching over my shop from Etsy to my own shop on rebirthgarments.com. So that's
Cool.
really exciting. And that'll be great because I hate dealing with Etsy. They're like super, I mean, they're just going the same way as Instagram and Facebook and all the things with like they shadow ban people
Oh, really?
and,
With
and,
from
and
your
listings.
garments?
Oh, definitely. I've had lots of garments shadow banned.
That's super
Uh,
fucked up.
even though they say you can have, nipples or things like that, they don't actually mean it. Like, yeah, I mean, my friend Nat, from Nat Glitter Kink had gotten shadow banned so much that she had to start her own, shop a while ago. I've had many listings shadow banned, and my friend Emma Alamo, who makes leather harnesses, also has been shadow banned. So she's also working on they're switching over too. So yeah, it's just a nightmare on Etsy world. But my friend Vive from the awesome clothing line Volpinic Vestments is helping me do the switch because I'm not a tech person.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a team behind you helping when, because your main role is to like make the thing and to build relationships with people. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should be a tech wizard able to figure out how to post everything on your website and everything. So that's good that you're getting
so far I do like I usually do everything. Like
wow.
the last year probably I've hardly sewn actually because I am mostly doing all of the administrative stuff, but I'm actually hiring my cousin Josh Cubacub as my like kind of business manager type person.
So that's fun.
He'll be doing some of that stuff. I'll still run my social media because I'm very picky.
For sure.
But doing more of the web stuff and getting gigs with universities and stuff like that.
Love it. And what do those gigs with universities entail?
So I lecture quite a bit. I would say this last year it's like I've been mainly lecturing and with the Chicago Public Library I've been doing this program called Radical Fit, which is based off of my manifesto and just getting to like curate a whole bunch of really cool people who are different kinds of fashion designers or fiber artists and folks who work in like the fashion realm and making videos that teens it was originally made for teens, but since it's on YouTube it can just be anybody. But if you go to UMedia Chicago and search for the Radical Fit playlist, then you can see a bunch of really fun tutorials and stuff.
Love it. Very, very cool. And I guess my last question I have, if you could think like 10 years into the future as to what some like big long-term goals are for you and Rebirth Garments, what would that look like?
I would love it if I just got a whole bunch of rich people to give me money and that none of my clients ever had to pay for anything. Like it could just be fully subsidized by, donations and rich folks and grants or something like, and then I could just, everything could be free for clients.
Wow. That is an amazing goal. I love that so much.
Yeah, I don't know. I've wanted that since the beginning, and I've seen other places kind of figure out how to do that. I've been able to, provide free and subsidized clothing and, thousands of masks, and giving, my employees, Kaylee and Eve, who are my like South side of Rebirth, have been focusing a lot on making free masks for houseless folks and doing drops around the city, or just like handing them out and things like that. And now I think they're putting a lot of them in the love fridge because that's like a more it's a little more protected instead of just like right now it's super snowy.
Yeah, I fucking bet.
Putting it outside.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you're amazing. Thank you so much for being on. It was an absolute pleasure to learn more about you and your business and a little bit more about this movement. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
How many different ways do you think I can say the word lube in 30 seconds? Let's give it a shot. Lube. Lube. Lubey, lubey, lubey. Lube. Lurb. L to the U to the B to the E. Lube! Well, that was loads of fun. This phenomenal and very necessary lube break was brought to you by Uberlube. Use promo code SEXEDDB for 10% off your purchase with free shipping at www.uberlube.com. Sex Ed with DB is supported by Clone-A-Willy. Clone-A-Willy has been all about dick since '96, and all kits are hand-assembled in Portland, Oregon. All materials are 100% body safe, extremely high quality, and easy to use and clean. Use promo code SEXED20 for 20% off your purchase of any Clone-A-Willy or Clone-A-Pussy kit at www.cloneawilly.com. Follow them on IG at Clone-A-Willy Kit. Our creator, co-producer, sound engineer, and host is me, Danielle Bezalel, aka DB. Our co-producer and communications lead is Cathren Cohen. Our main logo and banner graphic were created by Andrea Forgacs. Our social media intern is Leslie Lopez. Our music theme is by Hook Sounds. Our ad music is by my stepdad, Bill Gant. Thank you so much to our featured guests, partners, and our listeners. If you're interested in advertising with us, email us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. For more sex ed content, follow us on Insta at sexedwithdbpodcast. Tune in next time.